Hello, my friends. I'm Rocky Outcrop. This is Bitcoin Technical Analysis. I hope you're all doing really well. Let's dive straight into the action, shall we? Taking a look at the Bitcoin pricing over here on the CME chart, you can see we're right at that nice round number of $10,000 is. And if we look over at the spot prices, you can see that they're currently sat there at 9978. So we're in and around about, the same sort of levels. It's hard to tell, like it was yesterday, how much of a contangoed nature or indeed backwardized or just parity nature the future markets are whenever you're looking at that delay on the go, but their prices are certainly rather close. Let's take a quick little examination of this white line here. Taking a look at this is the 1 hour time frame that we have up on the go, and you can see that we haven't managed to fill in that gap above our heads as yet. Neither have we managed to fill in that gap below our feet. Here, looking between this blue line and this blue line down below, there is a gap on the CME charts, and of course I explained numerous times why and what gaps are and everything else and how they're created. But of course, if you're new here, welcome to the fam. Thanks for joining me, and let's just keep on going on. Be rest assured though that these things do tend to get filled at some point, and we've been talking about this one since it was created, really with an eye to it being filled, and it hasn't happened yet. Of course, neither has that one up above our heads. When we were looking at the charts yesterday, we might remember we were talking about how there was the potential for bullish divergence to be showing up here, but of course it's premature to say that at the time, and it didn't actually really transpire in the end, putting in lower lows on the RSI, and the sort of the higher highs that you need on the DMI to see that happen, more or less, or at least sort of equal ones. On the stochastics and the MACD though, we did get a bit of that divergence, but all that really managed to do was push us up towards this 10,500 area rather than the 10,560, 70 sort of area to fill in that gap, leaving it on the charts there, and it still exists. Now, what we're looking at the minute is whether or not this here low will come in ever so slightly lower than the previous one, in which case then you as well, yet again, you'd be looking at bullish divergence on the RSI and the stochastics, and on the DMI between these two lows, but not on the MACD, interestingly enough. I wonder how this would go, but it is premature to say that as yet. Like I was trying to make the point there before, you can't really do that until such times as you've got that locked in stone. And to do that, you'd need to have a local high being put in then thereafter for you to be able to look back and say whether or not it was divergent or not, because at the minute, this could simply go on lower, of course. Now the prices are 9978, and we're going to take a jump over towards the Bitcoin spot prices. But before we do that, let's take a look at some of the most seminal and pertinent lyrics that have been put out by anybody in the last 37 years. That's right. What could it possibly be? I'm sure you're curious to find out, and I'm sure you'll be surprised whenever I start talking about it. But when we look at the lyrics, you'll be thinking, this guy's got a point. Let's do that just now. And it's like that by Run DMC. So this song was first released back in 1983. It was released again in the 90s. I'm thinking something like 1998, something like that, 1999. I can't remember, but I do remember it coming out and me enjoying the song and me taking a lesson or two from it and applying that to my own life. Now, as we read through the lyrics just here, of course, feel free to skip this section. You'll see we're back on the charts if you just kind of scroll through and the white screen here disappears from behind me. Let me just move this down a wee bit actually, so it's not so out of place. Right. Yeah. Wow. What a song. Okay. What a song this is. Let's just see if you find it to be relevant to today's life. And I'm sure you will, especially when you take a look at that first line there. Unemployment at a record high. People coming, people going, people born to die. Don't ask me because I don't know why, but it's like that. And that's the way it is. People in the world try to make ends meet. You try to ride car, train, bus or feet. I said you got to work hard to want to compete. It's like that. And that's the way it is. Huh. Money's the key to end all your woes, your ups and your downs, your highs and your lows. Won't you tell me the last time that love bought you clothes? It's like that. And that's the way it is. Bills fly higher every day. We received much lower pay. I'd rather stay young, go out and play. It's like that. And that's the way it is. Huh! Wars going on across the sea. Street soldiers killing the elderly. Whatever happened to unity? It's like that. And that's the way it is. Disillusion is the word that's used by me when I'm not heard. I just go through life with my glasses blurred. It's like that, and that's the way it is. Huh. You can see a lot in this lifespan, like a bum eating out of a garbage can. You notice one time he was your man. It's like that. What? And that's the way it is. You should have gone to school, you could have learned a trade, but you laid in bed where the bums have laid. Now, all the time you're crying that you're underpaid, it's like that. What? And that's the way it is. Huh. One thing I know is that life is short, so listen up, homeboy, give this a thought. The next time someone's teaching you why don't you get taught, it's like that. What? And that's the way it is. If you really think about it, times aren't that bad. That one that stretches for success will make you glad. Stop playing, start praying, you won't be sad. It's like that. What? And that's the way it is. Huh. When you feel you fail, sometimes it hurts. For a meaning in life is why you search. Take the boys on the train, drive to school or the church. It's like that. And that's the way it is. Here's another point in life you should not miss. Do not be a fool who's prejudiced just because we're all written down on this same list. It's like that. What? And that's the way it is. Yes. Run MC versus Jam Master J. Okay, so if you remember that song and now looking at this, yeah, really, really pertinent for today's times, is it not? And I think that we all feel a degree of money is the key to end all your woes. We all know about the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. And I want to tell you as well that the next time someone's teaching, give this a thought. Why don't you get taught? It's like that. And that's the way it is. So if you feel like that is indeed a good thing to have, kind of visited for today, then hit that like button as well down below and let me know if you have a more pertinent song for today. Bear in mind as well, 37 years ago that came out, 1983. And history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it damn well rhymes. And here we are. Thanks so much for Run DMC for putting that out to the world. And right, okay, so yeah, are we going to have bullish divergence over here on the small time frames? Well, potentially, depending on how things shape up. Over there on the 1 hour time frame, as you can see, we haven't actually got a lower low put in there to really sort of create that divergence. On the 2 hour time frame, you're starting to see a bit of that. But what you're also seeing here is such as the DMI here having sort of expanded away from each other. As we're seeing this curve around here, right at the 50 level, we're at that point where you could say to yourself, are things going to get a little bit more serious? Are we rolling up our sleeves and getting down and dirty? If we actually look up at the 24-hour time frame and take a look at the DMI, then you can see that they very much did cross over there on the 1st of September, came up here. We've seen the ADX expand away up towards the top side, the DM positive and negative, still more or less overall diverging away from each other. Jumping over to the spot prices, then you can see that we have indeed got a similar sort of situation here. When this actually crossed, it was just below 20, giving you a little bit more sort of thought to be had in terms of whether or not it was a good time to get in on it. But we had that head and shoulders marked out there, and that was all kind of coming together at the same time. Had that pattern failed, then this wouldn't have looked like this ultimately in the end, but it succeeded, and here we are. Over here, we can see that the prices are more or less operating between the highs and lows of this parallel channel in the background. And like I said at the start of the show, we haven't filled out that gap towards the top side. It's still there waiting for us to be done, but we are right here staring into the depths of the gap that's just below us. If I go back over here real quick, you can see that that is definitely something which could be coming up in the near future. If you want to ask yourself though, which one will we get filled first or whatever, then maybe that's something that you could do. And if we did actually go on to fill in that gap, would we see further gaps as denoted here with these demarcated with these lines on the chart? You can see that there are 3 gaps remaining and they're all towards the downside apart from this one, which is just above our heads. I think somebody said to me recently that there's one further up that I might have missed. Maybe it's something like 14K or something like that, which will be all the way back over there. I'm not actually aware of that myself on the 24-hour time frame, but if there is a gap that I've missed, then of course let me know. I actually went through this and looked at all of 2020 up until the March area and discovered that all of the hourly gaps have indeed been filled. And if we were to go and fill the ones that are remaining on the chart from so far in 2020, you could even be looking down as far as 6,600 or 6,000. Sorry, dollar is there, which would take you into that mid 5K area potentially in terms of where the wick action and everything else could go. And that might be somewhat scary majerry for people on the way down there. If that were to be the case, of course, that isn't necessarily it. That isn't the be all and end all. And, there's plenty of trading to be done in between times, as is a common phrase on the channel, which you are now watching. So, hey, you could subscribe to that. That would be pretty good if you did. And then what would also happen is potentially a test of this downward sloping symmetrical triangle line. And you know what? If you were to take this symmetrical triangle and extend it up the way, then you've got this, this kind of really long trend line, depending on how you draw it in. But if you just use the bodies more or less, then you're looking at a very big sort of resistance support area for us, a profit-taking area in it around about the baseline of that gap. So if we did find a support there, then things would be quite positive for the future. But of course, if we break down past that, then of course it opens up the opportunity for these things to get filled in. Looking at that big chunky area over there in terms of where the liquidity would be if we do push on past it, of course. Going over to some other charts, you can see that we're currently actually just testing outside of this area, down below the 236, down below this parallel channel that we have to extend out the pitchfork. I could, of course, put in another one, as we did in yesterday's show. And you can see that we came down to the median line of this thing frequently, pushing down past the 9,850 area. I think obviously opens up the door for another couple $100 move down towards the lower side after that, causing a lot more fear, FOMO, greed, and all the rest of it in the market, of course. So I'd have to watch out for that. Be forewarned is forearmed in diddly doodly. And then moving on to take a look at the other sort of structures that we have here. As you can see, smack bang between these two yellow lines here, and we have a parallel channel at the back of this one, and of course we've clearly been resisted by what would be the median line of that if I actually had used the parallel channel tool to draw this in, which I could just do right now to demonstrate, as you can see there. And now we've come back down again, having not really succeeded in terms of opening and closing really above that consecutively, and then we've moved on down then subsequently since then. Of course, further targets towards the downside do bring you into that 9.5K area, and we know that there's other things that we could look to, for instance down here towards the 1618 of Fibonacci retracements from the past. And we also have more current Fibonacci retracements. Let me just get one of them up. For instance, the sort of we've gone past the golden pocket zone on this one, and the 786 and the 886 coming in there. Just down below in those 9,000 areas. And where are the other ones? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Well, we've had other ones on the chart in recent past. I don't seem to be able to find them at the moment. It doesn't really matter. We covered that as well in yesterday's episode anyway. We still haven't finished off filling in this gap here on the BTCs. It's obviously pre-market at the moment. Let's see how it goes. We'll quite likely, create another gap here on our way down, given the current price action at the moment in terms of how this one operates. I believe this is traded on NASDAQ. Looking at my watch, it's 2 o'clock. So this thing will be starting fairly soon. And that means that, that's a likelihood. You could look out for that on your own charts, of course. And what else is it that I wanted to talk about? Well, yesterday I mentioned it in a couple of the episodes. And what I wanted to talk about were moving averages, right? And I wanted to make a brief point. This is the sort of thing which is fairly sort of underexplained, underutilized in terms of the pedological approach to technical analysis. Nice phrase there. Which is what I use, of course. The pedology. Teaching, right? Okay, teaching is what I'm really all about here in terms of this technical analysis on the show, and I do hope that you take away a lot of value as a result of that endeavor. But what was I trying to say? Yes, this is underexploited. So what are, if I hide all of the drawings, what are moving averages, right? What are they? Well, they're an average of the price, over a period of time. And in a way, it gives you a pretty good indication of trend. And when you're using them, they're quite, pro-trend techniques, where you could say essentially certain things such as, from the long-term perspective, you're in a bull market, so as long as you're above the 200 simple moving average as a sort of fairly standard on the daily time frame. On the daily, underscoring that twice. Then, you're looking at this and saying, hey, we're in a bull market, and of course that would remain the case right down towards those low 9,000s. And how can you then contrast that against these oscillators down below? What are oscillators really, really good for? If I say that these are really good as sort of with the trend indicators, what do you think these down below might be good for? That's right, against the trend indicators. So you might find then, if you're able to combine the usage of these things, this will tell you, way things are going, and this might tell you when things might stop going that way, in a sense. And that's what we do on the channel. And I'm only really articulating this for the first time, explicitly like this, because of course that's that, teaching method and trying to help people out. What we have here on the go in the 24-hour time frame is a golden cross that happened all the way back over here on the 21st of May. We've come down, busted through the 50 simple moving average, and we haven't actually tested the 200 simple moving average since we had a golden cross over here. If I go back over to the last time there was a golden cross, not this one. This was the last time there was a golden cross, but it was obviously a fairly short-lived experience for us. If I go back over to the last time that there was a golden cross, whereby we actually had a bit of longer-term price action off the back of it, you can see that it was back over here in April 2019. We had a big move towards the top side, and then we came down and did ultimately test that 200 simple. And I think it was fair enough to say that whenever we broke down below this, that there was pretty much a negative sign in terms of the trend. Now, if I go back to the previous golden cross before that, bearing in mind that I'm looking at the Bitstamp chart here, which has got plenty of price action history on it, so I can actually go all the way back to, for instance, before the 2017 bull market to find the golden cross that led up towards that all happening. I have to keep scrolling left, as you can see here, and it comes in here in 2015, October the 31st. I'll just double check that as a reference as I look towards the right, but you can see the 200 simple here and how many times it got tested in this area, several, and that was of course on about 6 months after that or so, after they crossed. Then over here on August 2016, again another test of the 200 simple, telling you that you're in that bullish market. Now of course that's like nothing particularly fan-dabby-dozy about this, and I suppose given that there was a comment in the YouTube comments down below yesterday from someone talking about Carl the Moon, I suppose I ought to say that in a sense you could give him credit for that. Although I don't know, because I didn't watch the episode, just saw he was talking about some particular moving average. I assume he might have been talking about the 200. I really don't know. I didn't watch what he was saying, but he was saying that we're testing it now. All I can see in terms of the daily is that we're testing the 144 exponential moving average. I highly doubt that Carl the Moon would use that or really have much idea of its significance. So what one could he be using? Maybe he was using the weekly, and maybe he was talking about the 21 moving average over here, the EMA, which perhaps, from more comments in the YouTube channels people have been talking about, perhaps, it wasn't Carl. Perhaps then this credit for this idea, if you like, goes towards Chris from Crypto. Great guy, probably the friendliest guy in cryptocurrency technical analysis after myself, of course. And yeah, we're testing that at the moment. As you can see, being above it or below it obviously signals stuff for us. And where is that coming in at? Where are we at more or less now? Of course, if we were to dip down below this and come back up during the week, then you wouldn't have that close below it, and you'd be looking for closes and opens, for you to be able to say something significant about it. As we had this down here, we had a close below it, then we had an open, and we were still within this area, and then we came back up afterwards. But if you look at it and you dismiss that in terms of price action, you'd be foolish looking back over there and just taking a wee measurement off the top of this wick here, or that candle, sorry, the body more or less down to the lows. We had a 50% move towards the downside during that period, and actually ultimately it kind of spelled the end of this bullish scenario from back in 2018 there at that point, right, for us. Okay, so that's all good. And then the same thing again here whenever we did it in 2019, and if we were to do the same thing again here, then that would be the same thing again here, of course, right? And that of course doesn't go well with people who look at stock to flow models and stuff like that, who don't really trade. And what I want to underline again is that this is a trading channel. Thank you so much for joining me. There's more to trading than simply looking at one or two particular things. That's why it's good to have a general conception of the idea of sort of what is a counter trend indicator and what is, of course, indicators that will show you what the trend is that you could maybe try and exploit one way or another. And indeed, if this is going down below these areas and we don't see some sort of decent counter trend signal, then perhaps this simply would be an indicator of the trend with convergence down below. Okay, so that's cool. That's another solid 20-minute episode. Really wanted to do a 10-minute one, but hey, Jam Master J, We had a song in there, which is, of course, poetry of our times, and we had a lot of good information, and I think another pretty solid lesson for people. So perhaps we'll just look more at the delta tomorrow and see what we've been getting up to, and I'm sure there's a lot of value to be taken away here. So do that like thing and that subscribe thing. Now, also, I got sent a message where I was talking about doing a giveaway. How much is a Satoshi again? Is it a millionth of a Bitcoin? How much? I really like to know these sorts of things, but how much is a Satoshi? Right, 1 Satoshi equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it's a billionth. Is it a billionth of a Bitcoin? Whatever. I was thinking I might do a Satoshi giveaway, and somebody was saying you could do a Satoshi giveaway to me, and I thought, well, what would be one way of doing it? And perhaps I could do something along the lines of, that was Carleman's video there. What's that? I don't want any of these things up. Go away. It's going to start playing and making noise. Go away. What we could do, for instance, with this, let me know in the comments down below what you think the sound of. I could maybe do a Satoshi giveaway based on how many views we get. So maybe if we were, for instance, it could be like a 21,872 Satoshi giveaway, for instance, depending on the views. Let's see if we do that by September the 30th, and to enter it, all you'd need to do is leave a comment down below with something like, and the phrase suggested to me was, Rocky, you rock, your hair's rock. I don't know, some phrase. If you put in a phrase down below, which is, says my name, Rocky, you rock. Okay, we'll go with Rocky, you rock, right? If you put in a comment saying Rocky, you rock, then you'll be entered into that. I'll select a random comment, and we'll do something like a 21,872, whatever the view number is. So of course, that means that the more that people view the videos, the higher the giveaway will be. We'll do that on September the 30th. That'll be a good laugh, won't it? Great. That was worth hanging around for the extra couple of minutes for, wasn't it? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, cool. I'll mention it again in subsequent videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm actually probably only going to mention it as well in the Bitcoin video, because it's a Bitcoin giveaway, and well, really, I want the Bitcoin aspect of things to grow. If you look, search on YouTube, for instance, for Tezos, then I'm sure you'll come up with 1,000,001 Tezos videos by myself. I'm probably pretty sure that I've covered my bases in terms of search value and everything else there. But Bitcoin, of course, is where I want to see the growth on the channel. So let's see if we do it for the Bitcoin videos only. Maybe that'll help on that aspect. Anyway, great, nice one. Thanks for tuning in. I've been Rocky Outcrop. I'll be back again tomorrow with more technical analysis. Thank you so much for tuning in. YouTube.com/Rocky Outcrop if you want to share it with your friends. And I will see you again tomorrow.